Up to this point, in my channel's short history of uploading, I usually talk about older games that have impacted me in some way, in a sort of retrospective format. This will be different, however. I'll still cover this game like I did with KOTOR and Vice City, but it won't be as long as KOTOR's, as I wanted to have some short form videos in between my longer ones. I will cover newer games mixed in with the old, as I don't want to limit myself, because there are games that come out even now that impact me, just like this one. Blood West is a shooter with RPG elements set in the Western era, if the name of the game wasn't obvious enough. The game came to my attention shortly before they released the full version on Steam. I was looking at getting Gloomwood and saw that this was a similar type of game. After watching the trailer on the Steam store page, I was sold and bought the game. I managed to get halfway through it and then saw that the full version was released. So I started up a new game and recorded the footage of it for this video. With all that boring stuff out of the way, let's cover Blood West. The game begins with our unnamed protagonist being dragged by another unnamed individual across a cursed West, being shown glimpses of the horrors that now wander this cursed land. With our body being prepared for burial, we are awoken soon after from our recent demise as an undead. After, we are greeted by a talking totem that explains that they are the ones that brought us back to life, with the sole purpose of purifying the rot from the lands and ending the cycle of despair. After a brief tutorial that shows how the stealth and combat works in the game, we are given free reign to go wherever we want. Now the story in this game kinda takes a back seat to the rest of the experience, with most of the story being found on notes littered throughout the land. The notes also go over the different types of monsters you'll be coming across. There are several NPCs in the game that will act as a shop and quest giver. Some also give more information about the story, but like I said previously, most of it is in notes you'll find. In the first chapter, you must find cursed objects scattered around the map to progress to the final boss of the chapter. The objects range from a sheriff's star belonging to a good-natured sheriff that eventually succumbed to the curse, to a gilded cauldron that reeks of human meat that was made by someone who could make everything out of everything, and once he descended into madness, decided to use it to cook human meat. After coming across a couple of these cursed objects, we hand them over to the Totem of Souls, and are able to finally fight the first boss. The boss of Chapter 1 is the Mother of the Roots, a large tree-like boss with blood surrounding it. It's able to summon creatures to attack you, and it can attack with its roots from the ground below you. There are two ways to defeat this boss. The first is simply by attacking the red center that opens up when it's attacking. Doing it this way takes a lot of time and a lot of ammo, so I wouldn't really advise it. The second, and the better approach, is by taking a side route to the boss and destroying its large red blood orbs, or whatever it is you call them. This path isn't a walk in the park though, as it's filled with enemies. But you can do a lot of damage to the boss this way. Once it's at half health, you can teleport to the boss room and destroy the remaining 4 blood orbs to finish it off. With the boss now dead, we are on to Chapter 2, and in a new area of the game.
Knowing his offense against God, Job prayed for death to end his torment. He longed for the eternal rest of the grave. But the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, is in thine hand. And by God's permission, he was the devil's plaything until the devil is done with him. Job was a man of faith, a wealthy man, a devil took his good life away.
Welcome to the beautiful and spacious swamps.
You test me,
With this new area, there also comes new characters and new monsters to slay. We are also greeted by Annabelle.
Are you speaking of that thing?
Annabelle wants us to find two people lost out in the swamps. The first is a little girl named Twen, and the second is a preacher.
I would search for them in those places.
The little girl is hiding in a small tunnel beneath the sawmill, and will only head to the safe zone if we find her lost doll. Thankfully, it isn't that far away. The preacher is in the tallest part of the fort, and naturally, he won't leave until we find his treasured item. A copper distiller. Quite the fitting item for a preacher, apparently. Once both of them are safe, we can learn a little bit about them. Gwen was raised by her father in a village that no longer exists. He's a shaman and made the doll that we found for her to repel spirits and to keep her safe. The reason he is no longer around is because he left to perform a ritual to get rid of the demons, and would return when he was finished. Which means he's likely dead. Okay. So now that leaves her in the care of Annabelle. The preacher, if he really is one, asks us to find a cure for the disease that is clearly wreaking havoc on him. We agree to find it, but are also informed by Annabelle that she could use it as well, to remove the mask that is stuck to her face.
Thanks. This must be enough for now. Good luck out there.
There is only one cure, and when we return with it,
Yeah?
we get to make a choice.
Don't tell me you've actually found it.
Annabelle or the supposed preacher. Both choices have some sort of consequence. If we choose Annabelle, she will be grateful for giving her the cure,
Liquid?
and will be seen with the mask off shortly after giving it to her.
Oh yeah.
She will keep selling us her wares and tell us more about herself, with her asking questions about us in return. What a beautiful first date.
I was taking care of a small garden. Weren't anything special, but I liked growing flowers and herbs. Tragedy
The consequences is that the preacher will be pissed off and refuse to sell any of his wares to us.
That's not my problem. It's yours.
And will eventually die outside the cave, where we can stumble across his corpse near the swamp. What a truly sad turn of events. Oh well. If you give the cure to the preacher, I don't know why you would do that, but that's just me, he will be grateful, and will keep selling his wares to us, which aren't anywhere near Annabelle's in term of quality. The consequence of this choice is that Annabelle will be rightfully pissed and refuse to sell anything to us, and will eventually come to haunt us in the next chapter. But I'll go over that when the time comes. With that out of the way, we now need to look for pieces of another undead, who, like us, used to battle the forces of evil, but eventually vanished. These pieces are his hat,
My new favorite thing.
revolver,
Fine addition to my collection.
and his skull. Once we have all of them, we can bring them back to life? Unlife? Well, whatever it is, we bring him back to life. He then tells us how we can deal with the boss of the chapter, which is now roaming the area around the cave we are in. Naturally, he needs a couple of items to do this, which most of them thankfully come from the enemies of the area, with the outlier being a rare flower found in the swamp waters. After we give him all the items, he sets up these traps that could be lit on fire to weaken the boss, which makes it mortal again. We just need to light them and kill the thing. Easy. After a bit of time, patience, a lot of ammo, and a lot of luck, we slay the purple tree thing. The undead that we summon then has a proposition for us. He wants to help us break free from the totem's influence, as we shouldn't be so trusting of it. He recommends us taking a path to the mountains, which were his old stomping grounds, and lie low there. We take him up on his offer and make our way there, only for us to fall off a cliff and die. The end. The undead thankfully brings us back to life using a ritual. And with that, we are now on to the last chapter of the game.
Leave no loose ends, my friend, or I'll lend you myself.
Our first task of the final chapter is to make our very own Totem of Souls and infuse it with power. The undead hid a small artifact in a cache a long time ago and wants us to retrieve it. So off we go on another epic adventure. This one taking place in the mountains. The artifact is a small bell called the Way of the Spirit.
Stop hoarding.
And once we give it back to the undead, we can come across the person we chose to save the last chapter. If we chose to save the preacher, he has his usual crappy wares on sale, but also mentions that Annabelle went crazy and killed poor Twen. We can also come across the crazed Annabelle out in the mountains, and she will attack us on sight. If we made the right choice and chose Annabelle, then she'll sell us her great list of items. And since the preacher is already lying dead at the swamps, we don't have to worry about him roaming about. The undead then mentions that he saw a light off in the distance, which means someone else is alive out there. And we need to ask them about a monster with a powerful soul, as we need it for the summoning of the Totem of Souls. When we arrive to the spot the undead mentioned, we find a lone doctor in a cave. He takes great interest in us, as we are a sane and talking undead, which kind of makes sense. After he asks a couple of questions, we can ask him if he knows of a creature with a powerful soul. He says he saw a suitable creature at the bottom of the chasm that's near the town. The only issue is there are toxic vapors littered throughout the chasm, and it will kill us if we don't have a way around it. Thankfully, the doctor can make us something that can lower the damage of the vapors. He only needs the right ingredients. This is where our knowledge of certain enemies can help. If we give him good information about the ingredients, then we don't have to roam the land searching for them. But if we give the opposite, then that means more busy work. After the object is made, we make our way down the chasm and come across the giant skeletal remains of the creature the doctor mentioned. Right beside it is a phylactery that can be used for the Totem of Souls. When we hand it over to the undead, he says that all we need to do now is find the right spot to summon the Totem of Souls. The right spot is at the peak of the mountain, and the way leading up to the mountain is blocked by a door with 4 animal totems surrounding it. 4 totems require their jade statuettes to unlock the door. The statue of the bear is in a tribal village, surrounded by... these lovely enemies. The magpie statuette is in a bird's nest atop a very tall tree. The statuette of the great cat is by the iron mine, guarded by a hell bear. Finally, the fox statuette is in the woods, surrounded by deadly enemies that can turn invisible. Before we place the statuettes and climb the mountain for the final boss, we do have a side quest of note. It comes from a boo hag, which are a skinless female type of undead. She wants us to find her missing skin so she can impress the undead. And after we find it and give it to her, she'll eventually have it on at camp when we return, earning both her and the undead's gratitude.
Beautiful bachelor in the flesh. Oh dear. Is there something wrong with your size?
With all the statuettes collected and placed at their correct altar, we can finally summon the Totem of Souls at the peak of the mountain. Our reward for doing this? Starting the end of the world, as the spirit in the totem is evil. Who would have thought? The spirit turns into a flying beast that can breathe fire and hurl fireballs at us. After a whole boatload of lead being thrown at it, we are victorious. Or are we?
The sweet thrill of victory. The villain is slain, the hero victorious, finally free. Naive fool, you'll never be free. We created you, granted you powers and abilities that exceed those of mere mortals, and yet you are but a tool, a wayward soldier of a cause way beyond your understanding. Without us, you have no purpose. You will find no peace, no escape, no place to call home. As you wander aimlessly until the end of days, you will realize all you achieved was in vain. You will witness the spread of the curse and the end of the civilization of man. And there will be us, waiting, and you will grovel before us. For we are eternal, and you are ours. For eternity.
That is the end of Blood West.
So how did you like that?
Loved it. I want to ride that horse again sometime. Ooh, yeah.
Wow.
As stated at the start of the video, Blood West is a Western shooter with RPG elements. You level up by earning XP from killing enemies and finishing quests. With these level ups, you can spend skill points on certain skills and abilities. The skills range from stealth boosts to simple health and stamina increases, but there are even inventory upgrades that will become essential if you like to loot everything in sight like I do. The abilities, on the other hand, can change how you play dramatically, like allowing you to fan your revolver to slowing time down for a couple of seconds after aiming down sight with your weapon. There are many different builds you can make this way, from a melee heavy stealth build to a time slowing ranged build. I will say though that stealth builds will have a more successful time here in Blood West. The enemies do a ton of damage and will punish you if you get the attention of too many of them at one given time. The game also has items called artifacts that can change how you play or add small buffs to your character. These can be super common, like the ones you find on enemies, to super rare and expensive, like the ones sold at vendors in each chapter. There are also a few that can be found with some exploration, which this game rewards you for doing.
Oh yeah.
An example of being rewarded for exploring is in Chapter 1. where you can find a buffalo rifle by the fort, which does an insane amount of damage compared to anything else you get in that chapter. There is also a very difficult to find Easter egg in Chapter 2, but I won't spoil that if you're wanting to play for yourself. With each chapter change, you are set in a different map to roam around in. All the maps have a good number of locales to visit, with each being very diverse, so you won't get bored of staring at the desert for the whole game. The chapters also have their own enemy roster, which can force you to change how you approach certain areas and objectives. The one thing I didn't really like were the bosses. All three of them were very easy to deal with, and didn't leave much of an impact on me. The last boss only took 2 minutes to defeat with my rifle build. And the Chapter 2 boss was just annoying because the tentacles constantly popping out and shooting acid at me. It made me feel like I was in a hentai video. The audio for Blood West is quite good. All the guns sound like they pack a punch, especially the shotguns and the buffalo rifles.
Stay dead, pal!
With my personal favorite being the latter. I know, not choosing a shotgun is sacrilege, but you gotta love a powerful rifle. The reloads all sound great as well, with the shotgun and revolvers being the best.
Come back.
With the shotgun giving me kind of a Doom 2 super shotgun vibe. The voice actors have also done a really good job, with the voice actor for the Totem of Souls stealing the show for me. The voice they use kind of reminds me of the Darkness in the Darkness games.
Oh, it worked. It worked. And he is even in one piece. Embrace the darkness, Jackie.
The one issue I have with any of the VO is that of the main character. He talks a little too much, and the many times he does, he uses the same lines over and over and over again.
Disgusting filth! Disgusting filth! Disgusting filth! Disgusting filth!
But this isn't any type of deal breaker for me. The ambient sounds throughout the experience help a lot with immersing you, but there being some neat examples, like the sounds of a war going on in the fort in Chapter 1.
That will come in handy.
This kind of audio use helped the atmosphere tremendously, but a lot of the game will be filled with silence, broken up with combat, and the sounds the enemies make, which I think is a good thing, as you wouldn't want loud-ass music playing when you're trying to sneak around and listen for the enemies.
I will make you pay double for that.
The songs they do have in here are quite serviceable, as most will be heard while fighting the bosses. None of these really stood out to me, but that's okay, because the main menu theme is amazing. Just take a short listen. This song has been stuck in my head even after I finished playing and recording the footage. So it's definitely done something right. Overall, I had an amazing time with Blood West. It scratched the itch that I had for a Western shooter, and it didn't make the story the main focus, which is nice to see from time to time. The developer is new to me, so I'm interested in their previous releases now, but I'm also very excited to see where they go from here. If it'll be a sequel to Blood West or something entirely new. Either way, I'll be watching with a close and hopeful eye. Thank you for watching my video on Blood West. This was a shorter form video than I usually do, as I wanted to get a video out before I start my next long format video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video.
Suspect is in custody. Call the prison and let him know he's coming home. Over.